The hosts feel it would be a little unkind to present this podcast without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with the two great mysteries of creation, life and death. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to. Well, we've warned you. Hello, and welcome once again to the Frankencast. I'm the mad scientist, Anthony Bowman. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm joined as always by...
the Batman, who is actually a man-bat, that is Eric Velasquez. My pronouns are also he, him.
Yeah, so we're back at the Hotel Transylvania.
Yeah, two.
Yeah. This, I thought this was interesting. Like, I feel like I liked where this was trying to go. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like it had... like the sort of like message or whatever that it was going on. Like, I think it had some good ideas. I feel like the movie was kind of a mess though in terms of like structure, just because it was like the whole movie was basically a montage, or like the first half of it was like a dragged on montage.
You're being very generous. I'm going to say the first 75% of the movie, literally until the birthday party. It's like, okay, this is a great clip show, and if we were turning this into like a Saturday morning cartoon, this would be even better. Or, I'm sorry, those don't exist really anymore. A cartoon.
Yeah. Yeah, it just felt really sloppy. Like they were trying to do too much and fit it all in.
Right. And like you said, I like the message until a point. And then it's like, you could have just not done that, and it probably would have been a better movie for it. But, so let's talk about a little bit of controversy happening behind the scenes. Did you notice there was a distinct change of voices in one character?
Yes, the mummy changed from CeeLo to, was it Keegan-Michael Key, right?
That's correct. Everybody else is back except for, and of course we have Mel Brooks in a special role that I really enjoy. But do you know why CeeLo maybe would have not been invited to partake in Hotel Transylvania 2?
No.
So our good friend CeeLo was doing pretty good around 2012 when Hotel Transylvania first started. Makes sense, right? That's probably why he was invited to begin with. So then, in 2015, right when this movie was being made, or probably right before it released, he had some interesting things to say about individuals that he may have, what's the most gentle way I can put this? He definitely, okay, this is probably more relatable to Human Centipede first sequence, is when he decided to have some girls over for a drink of water.
Oh.
Yeah, and then he threw it kind of back on them.
Oh, yikes.
So, yeah. So, CeeLo did a bad, to put it mildly.
Okay. I was not aware of that at all, but yeah, that checks out. Like, of course they would not want him in this children's movie.
Right. And of course he said that, to make it even better, he did hope for that people would just understand his side of things. So,
yeah,
and give him some what was it? Give each other a margin for human error.
Yep, that's gross.
Yep. We used to like you when you were in Gnarls Barkley CeeLo, but I mean, I'm not saying you're an awful person. Well, I'm not saying that either. So,
Yeah, yikes.
I think he may have actually been acquitted, but still, it's...
there, yeah, definitely some sketchy stuff there. Huh. Yeah, I just assumed that, he was just, like, moving on to other things, and they just got in a different... since he's not really an actor, I figured it was just kind of a one-off for him.
Well, yeah, and it may very well have been that he was also kind of he was high-priced, but with everyone else they invited back, it's kind of glaring.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like they made the right call.
Yep. So let's talk about Columbia turning back into a bat in the intro.
Yeah, that's such a nice just way to start things off. It's just fun. And the movie kind of starts similarly after that, too. Like, we get, we see, like, a foggy castle on a stormy night, which, of course, that's about half the movies we watch start that way.
Yeah. I feel like it's with going without, it's without saying that there's a stormy night.
Yeah. And then we have, like, the camera kind of, like, zooms into the castle and then, like, goes through revolving doors, and, we're inside the hotel lobby.
Of course, and then we get a little bit of a, we swing in on the hotel. There's some spiders dropping down, and then we see, congratulations, Mavis and Jonathan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like a spider web banner, like Charlotte's Web kind of thing.
Yeah, so they're getting married.
Yeah. And so, again, the lobby is just, like, hopping with monsters. There's all kinds of, similar to before, there's all kinds of different varieties of creatures and stuff. But this time, some humans stroll in as well.
What? And I do like how it's like all the monsters just immediately freeze, record scratch. They all just turn and look at the humans.
Yeah.
And these humans are new faces as well. We've got, Grandma Linda, and what was Grandpa's name? I was prepared for everyone but Nick Offerman's character.
Yeah, it's Nick Offerman and Megan Mullally, like...
Married in real life, yeah.
Yeah, so...
Grandpa Mike. Or Mike.
Okay.
Yeah, Mike.
It's Jonathan's parents and a couple of his brothers as well, I think. 2
brothers, 1 sister. We really don't get anything from them. Maybe a couple voice lines. Like, I feel like there's like some credit to a actor with additional voices, and that's them.
Yeah, they're pretty minor. There's like one little bit with one of the brothers later, but like for the most part, they could not be in the story, and you wouldn't notice much difference.
Right. And by the way, I don't know if Chris Kattan got, this was like, we cast this guy just because, and we wanted to snub him a little bit. But I guess Keiki is kind of a important role in the movie.
Yeah. Oh, Keiki.
Oh, Keiki.
And yeah, so once the family shows up and the monsters kind of like freeze frame at them, we end up with like the first actual montage in this sort of series of this montage of montages, sort of. It's like, everybody's getting photos taken and everything, and you get some little gags where like the vampires don't show up in the pictures and stuff like that.
Specifically Mavis and Dracula.
Yeah. And then from there, we're right into the wedding. It's
let's talk about Griffin and his date. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, and like his date from Canada, dun dun dun.
Right. Because Murray has like a sexy lady mummy, kind of like Nefertiti, Cleopatra kind of thing going on. And then, Griffin is like, I've got this hot date too. You all just can't see her. She's right there.
Right there, yeah. Which, okay, we know if everyone's had a friend who had a girlfriend from Canada, right?
Right. It's just like a staple of like internet culture that you're...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so everybody's kind of making fun of him. Like, they don't believe him, but they're kind of like, oh, okay, we're happy for you. That's great.
Right, and speaking of the monster girl and the brother walking down the aisle, she's making faces like, oh, this guy's so gross, right? And it's like, okay, they're going to end up together. Like...
Yeah.
Clearly, she's mocking him so much that it's like, oh, thanks for the telegraph there. I appreciate that.
Yeah. You get this moment where, like, as Mavis is starting to walk down the aisle, Dracula...
Oh, can we talk about the flower girls getting mauled by the wolf kids?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I forgot. She's, like, halfway down the aisle and then just is swarmed.
Right. They don't really maul her. They just, like, roll all over for whatever reason. And then she's, like, all dizzy and stumbles off.
Yeah. And Dracula sees Mavis walking down the aisle and kind of like has a vision of seeing her as a child as she's walking down. It's like, my little girl's all grown up.
Aw, it's adorable.
Yeah. And we don't, like, the wedding part, we don't really get much of it. Like, we don't actually see the ceremony. We just pretty much cut to the reception.
Right, yeah. I mean, the only thing we see is that them going in for their first kiss or whatever, and Dracula throws up his little shrunken head at them.
Yeah, and then he gestures that he wants it to be a short kiss. He doesn't want him to do anything too graphic there in front of it. He doesn't want to see it.
Right.
So then the reception's kind of, we had when the humans arrived, everybody seemed kind of nervous, but now,
everybody's having fun.
Yeah, they're having fun. They're more comfortable. The humans and the monsters are interacting. They're dancing together. Yeah, pretty much. And so again, this is, we just get a lot of little gags of different humans and monsters interacting in different ways.
The Gilman kind of giving a speech, but not really. But somehow Johnny understood it, so, good for him.
Yeah, it's he's speaking in gibberish. And then
the cake screams as they cut it, and then the little pieces of the cake scream and run back to the big cake. Yeah. That's a great bit.
Yeah, because in the last movie, I don't know if we even mentioned it, but there's Mavis talks about that she likes scream cheese.
Right.
I think she has a bagel with scream cheese or something. So yeah, this seemed similar.
Oh, so this is scream cheese icing?
I guess so.
I hate myself for that joke.
And so then we get the father-daughter dance, but they go up on the ceiling. Mm-hmm. So they're able to kind of have a conversation separate from everyone. And Mavis asks why Grandpa Vlad didn't come to the wedding.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah. We'll find out that Grandpa Vlad is notoriously anti-human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's pretty much, Dracula's he's too old school. He would have
eaten Johnny and his family.
Yeah, he wouldn't have approved of this interspecies marriage, pretty much.
Yeah, which, as much as they talk Vlad up in this, he kind of rolls over pretty easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's one of those things where, which is true in reality in a lot of cases where people have preconceived notions about a particular race or gender or sexual orientation or whatever, and then as soon as there's somebody in their life with that, they change. It's just meeting
wild.
A person and seeing that they're a real human and have that they have complex wants and desires and aren't just the stereotype that they were expecting.
Yeah, it's pretty wild how all those stereotypes are just bullshit, and once you actually meet a person and see that they're a person, all that just vanishes.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we should just hand out plane tickets to other countries, to the people in the South and the Midwest, but it might not hurt.
Right, yeah. And to kind of echo that's pretty much what Dracula says. He was kind of old school himself, but he's kind of fully turned around now. As long as Mavis is happy, that's all that he cares about.
Right. Which is nice. And then of course we immediately get that monster girl that was gagging about the brother, start smooching on him right away. Yeah. So it's all right, well, this bit that turned around real quick.
Right. And we get Dracula singing a little song. It's your daddy's girl, and now you're Johnny's girl. Yeah. And it's just an Adam Sandler ukulele kind of song, he's done for years. He's
contractually obligated to do one ukulele song in every single comedy that he's in.
Right. And while he's singing, Bigfoot starts crying and just drenches Johnny's mom. It's just one giant teardrop just lands on her head and she's just soaked.
Right. I'm sorry. I just immediately thought of this. How crazy would what was that? It wasn't Blood Diamond. The Gangland movie that Adam Sandler did.
Oh, Uncut Gems?
Uncut Gems. Could you imagine that one with a ukulele solo? Now I'll go back and watch it if there was one in the back. No.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think, then we just get a 1 year later cut, and
Dracula's painting a Picasso.
Yeah, it's great. So we see Dracula, and he's we just see him painting, and it looks like a Picasso type painting. And then Mavis and Johnny come in. They're
really giddy for some reason.
Yeah. And it's Mavis wants to go fly together. They haven't done that in a while. And Jonathan is he's not good at keeping secrets.
No.
He's go have fun. I don't know what could be, he's trying to be really coy about it.
Right.
And Dracula's okay.
Yeah, it's telegraphing what we're going to find out here in a moment.
Yeah.
And then we get the joke about, all right, Todd, you can go now. It turns out it wasn't necessarily a Cubist painting. It just was Todd.
Yeah,
It was a
yeah.
painted doll.
It's a very realistic painting Dracula was doing of a very weirdly shaped monster.
Right. Which I have a question about what they consider monsters in this whole thing, right? So, digression time, I guess.
All right.
We can hold that off for later if you really want to when the Phantom pops up.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like like we kind of had that conversation last time with like the Quasimodo, where it's just like he's just a guy who has a hunchback.
So yeah, the Phantom apparently is a monster, even though he's just a guy with scars and a mask and can play the piano, which I guess that's monstrous or something. Then we really have Griffin, who just is a guy who took a potion.
Right.
Like, so what? Where's the delineation between monster and like just a guy or humans?
Yeah.
You know?
I don't know. It feels like that would be something that they could lean into in some interesting ways to be like, why are we separating? What actually makes us different from them? Like,
right.
There's a lot, like we talked, with like the grandpa being like old school and not okay with these like interspecies relationships or whatever.
Right. It's like the moment you slap on a cape and a like mask, boom, you're in. You're good.
Right. Yeah, it feels like that could have been an interesting angle to kind of come at. We've got 2 more movies with them too, so who knows? They may get into that eventually.
Kind of. At least on the next one.
So Dracula and Mavis go flying. They're kind of flying. They get into the clouds and they're kind of playing like hide and seek in like the fluffy clouds.
Right. Well, initially, this reminds Dracula of when Mavis was a kid, and they used to go hide and go seek for the sharp objects. Right. Add that monster twist to it.
Yeah, of course. And then suddenly Mavis is like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm really out of breath because I'm pregnant."
She's a vampire. She doesn't breathe.
Right.
Why? Why is she tired? Like, I mean, I get it. It was because of the belly reveal, which, by the way, what stress does that put on a fetus?
Being turned into a bat?
Yeah. Right. Like, would it have briefly been a bat fetus? Or,
yeah.
Because that was a big bump even for, especially for a bat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When Mavis had none before she transformed.
Yeah. Yeah, so of course, Dracula's very excited that he's going to be a grandpa soon. Mm-hmm. But he also is really quick to he's just leaning into that he can't wait for them to have a vampire baby.
Yeah.
And
they're like, well, it might not be vampire. Could be. I mean, it could at least be half human.
Yeah, and Mavis is like, as long as we're as long as we have a happy, healthy baby, that's all that matters. Mm-hmm. And even though Dracula was saying that earlier, now when it's like a possible grandchild, he's kind of failing at that. Like he's
right, because Mavis is having cravings, right? She's like, oh, I want ice cream with anchovies, which that's a wild one. Okay, fair enough. Who am I to judge? But he's like, no, you got to eat your spiders and sheep bile so the kid can climb up walls.
Right.
And I don't know what the sheep bile's for. It's just there, I guess, to help the spiders go down easier.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Then we're pretty much right to the delivery room. We don't really get a long pregnancy bit here.
No, which that's good though, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think again, they had where they wanted this movie to go and where it started, and they just had to fill in a lot of gaps really quick. So, there's some gags there where they won't let the hospital people won't let Dracula in, so he disguises himself as a lady nurse and then gets inside right as they declare it's a boy, and he's very excited about that.
Mm-hmm. And they just name him Dennis.
Yeah.
Well, how could you do that to a kid? Just name him Dennis like that.
And then we're just straight to baby Dennis's first birthday.
Of course, his candle's really a cake, or a monster, sorry.
Yeah. And, then we've got Jonathan's parents are there for the birthday party, and they really want Dennis to be a human, and, Dracula's continuing to want him to be a vampire, and so they kind of, are snippy at each other about that.
Yeah. Of course, because he's calling him by his vampire name, Desinovich. Mm-hmm. Denisovich, yeah. And we get kind of the fact that Grandma Linda is a little bit bigoted, I guess.
Yeah, she's doing the...
He'll be normal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's... And that kind of continues where, she There's points where she's trying, but like what she's saying is so like
she's misguided.
Yeah, it's that like ignorant person who like is trying to be good, but they're still leaning into the stereotypes, and they're actually saying really fucked up stuff, in like a kind-hearted way, but they're just completely blind to it.
Well, they're learning. Maybe they're on the path to learning.
Yeah,
as we mentioned earlier. But we have a time frame. If Dennis doesn't get his fangs before his 5th birthday, he'll just be a human for the rest of his life. Oh no, how terrible, how awful.
Right. And we get a little bit here at the birthday. Dracula's friends give the baby gifts.
My first guillotine or the cursed medallion.
Yeah. So the Frankensteins give him a guillotine, and Murray gives him a cursed medallion, and he's like, I swear it's a really good curse. I made sure. Right.
Okay, that's interesting. A good curse. Yeah. Maybe he's going to teach the kid to be a min-maxer RPG player, right? But once the Steins, I guess we could call them, give Dennis the guillotine, like immediately Mavis is like, oh, we got to put rubber along the blade edge, and then we've got to childproof the whole place. Yeah. Because he's going to be a human child, maybe, probably.
Right. Then we get like another little like time passing thing. We get like the height marks on the door frame.
His first words being blah blah blah.
Yeah, which obviously makes Dracula really mad.
Right, he's like, where did the kid pick this up? I never say that unless I'm mocking you for saying that I say that. And as soon as he leaves the room, Mavis is like, now go blah blah blah, and he's like, you did that.
Yeah. Which is, that's such a great like that Mavis would do that just to fuck with her dad. Like, it's just the best.
Yeah.
And then we get like a bit where Jonathan's like walking around the hotel with Dracula, and he's discussing like he's got a job now. It's like human monster relation coordinator.
He's a social media guy, basically.
Yeah. And so he's got some ideas to make the place more human friendly.
Yeah, we got to take away the Harry the magician.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's like, well, I mean, I know he's like an old school magician, but people seem to like him. And we get like a little bit of his act.
Which just involves him like, is this your card? And then he shoves his hand through another monster's chest, pulls out his heart, and pops it open to reveal the card.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I can see why normal humans wouldn't want that.
Right.
Definitely no volunteers from the audience.
But Dracula just kind of like shuts down all of Jonathan's ideas. Like, he's given Jonathan a job because he's his son-in-law, but like he's really not interested in his input.
And we also get a bit where Dracula just doesn't know how, or he can't interact with cell phones very easily.
Because he's got like claws, and so he's like tapping the glass instead of like getting his fingertips on the glass. Jonathan sends him a text to show him how it works, and he can't get it back, and he's like, maybe you should just get Bluetooth, that might be easier. And he's like, okay, hey Bluetooth, come here. And this giant Bluetooth just shows up.
Which, another good bit. I feel like Mel Brooks wrote half the bits in this one.
Yeah, that's one of those gags that it's so dumb that it's just wonderful. And then we get like later on at night, Dracula is waking Dennis up and trying to teach him monster stuff while his parents are asleep.
Right. He's like, did you have any dreams of drinking blood or turning into a bat? It's like, no, didn't have any of those.
And so, yeah, he keeps trying to teach him how to turn into a bat, and it's not working.
He's like, I'll show you with the power of dance.
Yeah, they have a dance off, which is just because it's a cartoon and kids like that kind of thing. But then Mavis strolls in the middle of it and is like, what are you doing? She's like, Dennis needs to sleep. He's got human classes that are starting soon. Dennis is like, well, before I go to bed, can I show Grandpa my monster video?
Right. Well, Dracula's also like, hey, let's, here at 3 o'clock in the morning, the Wolf Wayne's kids are going to have their collective birthday party because they were all born in one litter.
Right. Yeah. And so he's like, Dennis needs to go to that. And Mavis is like, I don't know. But then when Dennis wants to show him this monster video, Dracula's like, oh yeah, you're something monstrous that you like. Let's do it. And so he puts on the video, which is basically just Sesame Street.
Right. With a cake it's a terrible puppet.
And yeah, this is Cakey, who is just clearly Cookie Monster, except he just likes cake.
And apparently they promoted him to the star of the show versus like everyone else that they could have promoted.
Yeah, and obviously Dracula's very offended by these like cute, cuddly monsters. That's not his thing.
We also learned that Dennis is almost 5, and his fangs still haven't popped, so he's probably going to be a human.
Yeah. Dracula and Mavis tuck Dennis into bed, and Mavis sings Twinkle Twinkle Little Star.
Dracula's like, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, what happened to the version I used to sing to you? And so then he sings it, which it's like, suffer, suffer, scream in pain, something like that.
Yeah, bleed until you don't bleed again.
Right.
You'll never bleed again. Yeah.
And Mavis falls asleep as he's singing it, so it's
still
cute.
got it.
Yeah. Then it's a little later, and the werewolf pups are having their party, and Mavis brings Dennis down. She decides that, he should get to spend time with his cousins,
And I don't know, is this insulting that the werewolves are Latin-coded? Latino-coded?
Yeah, it feels like it. Well, I mean, I guess
it's a little gross.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I guess there are like a lot of like Mexican werewolf stories.
Latino families they're big. Latino families are big. Yes. Okay, we won't bypass that. Yes. But also, why you got to do that, man?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, Wayne does not. It's not like they've leaned into this from the beginning. Like, Wayne does not seem like, he's just like, he seems like a white corporate guy. Yeah, it definitely, this is kind of, the party has that kind of feel to it, like a, Mexican, there's a
there's mariachi and piñatas, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I feel like there's a way, you could do the hombre lobo kind of thing and lean into this whole there is a Mexican werewolf
yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah,
Latinos and werewolves are a thing, I know.
Yeah, so if they had done it that way and done it right, it could have seemed a little less like we're making a Catholic Mexican joke, basically.
I mean, even if they got what's his name, one Gabriel Iglesias probably would have been the best option, I think. And then who is it? George Lopez? Yeah, he's fine, I guess. He would have fit in fine, I guess.
Yeah, and in fact, I think it seems like George Lopez has been in stuff with Adam Sandler. They might be friends or something. Yeah, I might be wrong about that. It seems like their paths have crossed at some point.
Right. Well, I feel like if so, then there would have been a conversation about this after the fact if he watched it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's clear that that's kind of the angle they're going for here. Is the monster, they're looking at race through the lens of monsters versus humans, but they're not sticking the landing every time here. It's a little muddy. So it ends up, Mavis is like, yeah, it is important for Dennis to still spend time with the monsters too. So she wakes him up and takes him to the party and everything.
And this is kind of where we also learn that Winnie, the former punk rock wolf child, digs Dennis. Mm-hmm. They're really friendly.
Yeah, she keeps talking about how she wants to zing with him someday, going back to our zing thing from the last movie.
Well, in her mind, they've already zinged.
Yeah.
Later on, she will call him her zing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so. She's very attached to Dennis. Mm-hmm. And then we get a bit where Mavis, she decides to kind of she wants to have fun at the party and kind of takes over, kind of makes the party about herself. It's a really strange scene. There's not really a justification for why she's acting this way.
Okay, so she does this twice. I feel like this is the repressed homeschooled child reaction to certain things.
Okay.
And that they haven't necessarily... I only know, 2 homeschool people, so don't yell at me too much. Just let me know if I'm wrong. But it's they don't know exactly the proper social responses, right? Mm-hmm. So it's oh, we're having fun, so I'm just going to have fun.
Yeah.
And the end result out limbos everybody. And then it's piñata, and it's no, those are for the kids. That's okay, you're just beating the crap out of the piñata. Okay, well, hopefully you don't let the candy get to the kids because we don't want and the werewolf children need all the candy.
Right.
And just tear through the rest of the party.
Yeah, so now they're just a tornado of fur just destroying everything.
Right, as a matter of fact, they even knock Dennis over and knock out one of his teeth.
Mm-hmm. And of course, Dracula's immediately like looking in there, like maybe a fang's gonna pop out instead. Maybe this is it. Mavis is upset by that Dennis got hurt, and that Dracula's more concerned about him being a monster than the fact that he got hurt. And she's like, I'm putting my foot down. Dennis is not a monster. He's going to human classes. And I think we might move away because Dennis needs to be somewhere where it's safe for humans.
Right, and proving that both Johnny and Mavis are rich, we're going to move to the cheapest place in the world, California.
Right. And yeah, obviously Dracula's upset by this, and Mavis says, you can't force someone to be something that they're not, which...
Right. Good message.
Yes.
Solid.
And then it's like a little later, Frankenstein comes to check on Dracula. He's like alone in his room. They're kind of chatting, and it's like Dennis is going to turn 5 in 1 week. If he doesn't turn into a monster by then, it's not going to happen. They kind of like come up with this plan together. They're going to try to like submerge Dennis in the monster world and like let him see and experience a lot of stuff that Mavis has been protecting him from.
Right.
And maybe that will spark something.
Yeah, if we let him live out his natural monster tendencies, he'll become a monster. Great.
Yeah.
Or a psychopath.
Right. Basically, the plan is they convince Mavis and Johnny, or Johnny's in on the plan. He knows what's going on.
Well, Johnny doesn't want to go back to California. Right. He's like, I know my parents, man. You don't want that.
And so, but Mavis and Johnny are going to California to see if it'd be a good fit for them. Right. Meanwhile, because it's important that Dennis keep up his routine and go to his classes and stuff, Dracula and the other monsters are going to keep an eye on him and take care of him back at the hotel.
Time with his vampire.
Right.
His vampire grandpa, don't you get it?
Yeah. The whole thing is like, Johnny, you got to keep Mavis super distracted so that she doesn't bother us and doesn't come back too soon. So she's got to be occupied, but don't make her like California too much, because we don't want her to actually want to move there.
Yeah, it's a nice place to visit, but you wouldn't want to live there, right?
Right. Jonathan and Mavis leave in like a carriage, and pretty much like as soon as they're gone, the monsters all hop into another carriage.
Oh no, not as soon as they're gone, because we also have Griffin with his girlfriend.
Oh yeah, so like earlier when he said he had a girlfriend, he's just like, there's nothing there. He's just like, just talking to air and nothing, But now he's like upped his game a little bit. He's got two champagne glass flutes, and like is talking and then replying in like a higher pitched voice, and it's clearly just him.
Right.
But he's like faking this whole conversation.
Or not Dana Carvey. It's
David Spade.
David Spade, yeah.
And they're like, oh well, like he's mocking or like mimicking that they're saying goodbye to each other before Griffin leaves on the trip.
Yeah, and everyone's like, well, should we talk to him about this?
Yeah. And they're like, why don't you guys both finish your champagne so we can go? And he's like, oh, we have to both drink these? And so like you see one that he's drinking and the other one he's just pouring out, and you just see it spilling on the ground.
You're so clumsy.
Yeah. I kind of was hoping that this gag would end up paying off, that like, no, she really is real, and it just, that's what she sounds like.
Right? That would have been so much better.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is pretty much the last we get of this gag. Like, it's...
Well, we get the payoff at the very end, which, I mean, okay, she's not real, it is fake, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's not funny, so that's why we're spoiling it now.
Yeah. So yeah, it's our main crew of monsters get into the carriage, and then it turns out that Blobby wants to come.
Yeah.
And so Blobby hops into the carriage, but then it's just like they're all just floating in this like gelatinous ooze. So instead they just have like one of those little like rascal, like the carts that people ride around in a grocery store, and Blobby rides in that, and it's just like hitched to the side of the carriage.
Right. And of course we do get a little bit of the zombie servants like loading up the vehicle and like bolting on the rascal and
Yeah. So as they all kind of head out, Frankenstein's like, do you think we should call Vlad, right? Like he should probably be involved in this.
Don't they say something like to the effect of he can fix the kid?
Yeah.
Which that's awful. That's not a great thing to say.
No. And Dracula's like, no, we got this. We can handle it. So then we cut to California. So this section here is a lot of like back and forth between the two groups. And so in California, Jonathan, as we said earlier, he's really bad at keeping secrets. So he's like panicked the whole time trying to be sneaky about the plan.
Yeah, I got to keep you having fun, but not too much fun. What? That's a weird way to say it.
He says that out loud to her, and she's like, wait, what? He's like, don't worry about it. It's fine.
Right.
And then we get back to the monster crew, and they've arrived in the dark forest, which is now like a gentrified park, basically.
The forest of Slobozia, because that's a European sounding word.
Right. So Frankenstein's going to show Dennis how to scare people, and he jumps out in front of some joggers. And they're like, "Oh, it's Frankenstein. We love you. Can we get a selfie?"
Which that's awesome. And Frank's like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, sure."
Right. Yeah, so obviously that doesn't go well. It's similar to, when they were at the convention in the last movie. And then next we get they're just like,
we do learn then, like, on the way to the next spot, that Dennis wants to be a really cool, like, his superhero, or his hero in a cape. He wants to be Batman! And, of course, that really hurts Drac. Right. He's like, I'm a cool guy in a cape.
Right. And, yeah, so they go further into the woods, and Dracula's like, all right, Wayne, go kill something. And he's like, really? Do I have to?
Right. Well, the problem is Wayne's domesticated. Hey! Okay, fine.
Yeah. So they see a deer, and he's like, I don't have to hunt anymore. Like, there's Pop-Tarts.
Right. And then, of course, somebody off screen throws a frisbee, and he's like, go!
Yeah. So, like, he catches the frisbee, and there's like a dog that catches it at the same time, and they're like wrestling with the frisbee.
Which that's fun.
Yeah, it's pretty great. But Dracula is just so embarrassed.
He even tries to take the frisbee from Wayne, and Wayne's like, no, mine!
Right. And then back in California, Mavis and Jonathan are driving around, and they pass a 24-hour mini-mart.
Which Mavis is too excited for a mini-mart.
Yeah.
I guess she's never seen one, but still.
Yeah, so they go inside, and yeah, she's just like so excited about everything. She's like, there's all these snacks, and there's this Slurpee machine.
Right, which that's amazing. How do people decide there's so many chips, how do people decide how to eat them? And the cashier's like, I don't know.
Yeah, the cashier in this bit is pretty good. Like, he's just deadpan about everything. And I did notice, though, part of this scene we see through like the security camera. And earlier when they took pictures, Mavis wasn't in them, so she shouldn't be on the security camera footage, right?
Right. We're thinking about this way too hard, but yeah, seriously.
It seems like that could have been an interesting gag for like the worker to like look over on the monitor and see like floating bag of chips where she should be.
Right.
But yeah,
or see her running around with Jonathan, and clearly like nothing else is in the picture.
Yeah, so they missed that opportunity.
Yeah.
But Johnny's like kind of panicking because he's like, she likes this too much. Like, it's not this cool, I promise. Like, there's better stuff back in Transylvania.
Right. Hilariously, he notes that once the sun goes down, there's nothing to do, which I've never truly been to California, but I feel like there's more to do probably when the sun goes down.
Yeah, I'd imagine they can find. I mean, they're at a 24-hour mini mart. You can definitely go there anytime. But yeah, there's plenty of other things to do in the evenings in LA, I'm sure.
Right. Or this is in Santa Cruz, right? Or as they say, Santa Claus.
Oh yeah, right. But yeah, still there should be plenty to do there around there.
I hear there's a great pier with maybe some lost boys. Wouldn't that be a tie-in movie?
Right, yeah. Yeah, that would be great. And then back with the monster crew, Murray needs to conjure up a sandstorm and do, his mummy stuff. And so he does this like elaborate spell where he's like, doing all the like this speech and kind of like dancing, like, walk like an Egyptian kind of like motions and stuff. But somewhere in the process, he ends up hurting his back.
Throws his back out mid-dance.
Yeah. And so he kind of falls over, and then we just like a small little pile of sand just appears next to him.
Yeah. And of course, Griffin's like, oh, that's cute.
Right. And Dennis makes like a little snowman out of sand.
Yeah.
And
well, Frank decides he's going to add the carrot nose. Where he had the carrot, I don't know.
Right.
And of course, once Griffin calls it cute, Dracula decides he's going to give him the purple nurple.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's weird, right? He just grabs his. We don't know that he's grabbing his nipples, but I mean, if you're an adult, you know he's grabbing his nipples and twisting.
Right. Yeah, and they don't. I mean, he's invisible, so like he's presumably walking around naked with his glasses on and.
Right. Well, Drac has that nipple dar. He just knows.
Right. And then back in California, Mavis sees a skate park and wants to go do that. And this is another scene where she like kind of isn't as chill as she should be.
Right.
And so it's like this is a skate park for kids, and they're like riding BMX bikes, on little half pipes and stuff. And she takes a bike from a kid and starts like pedaling all over the place and everything.
Well, she takes off like a rocket and literally leaves a trail of fire behind to start with. So,
Yeah.
of course, because she's a vampire, she can do all kinds of aerial tricks. So she just kind of leans into that pretty hard, which I feel like that's cheating.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. But she's like, Dennis would love this. This is great. And Jonathan's like, yeah, but it's really dangerous. Like you wouldn't want Dennis doing this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. A car pulls up, and there's a gentleman and presumably his girlfriend. The guy's like, hey, do you know where we can get a bite to eat? And the girl's like, did you just ask a vampire where we can get a bite to eat? And of course, that's a dumb, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that I guess that like goes back to like, so human society has now sort of like integrated more with monsters, but they haven't quite figured out how to like it feels like Reconstruction era, America, where it's like we're trying to not be racist, but we haven't quite figured it all out, but we're trying.
Right. Well, at least there's not some other people that are putting on cloaks or something and being like, hey, let's not progress.
Right. Yeah. Then I think she's like, oh well, I should tell them what we're doing. So she decides to FaceTime Dracula. He's freaking out because like Dennis is asleep and they're in a carriage, like it's not where they should be. He has trouble answering again because he doesn't. I think Griffin ends up unlocking the phone for him, and he like puts the phone really close to his face so she can't see anything but his face in the whole screen. They end up kind of doing like a Weekend at Bernie's thing with Dennis asleep to like, so that Mavis can see him and everything. Mm-hmm. So she's talking about how much fun she's having, and Dracula is like nervous.
Johnny's screwing it up.
Yeah. So then the next stop is they need to go to the vampire summer camp.
But of course they're going to. I feel like they really wanted to call it Wee Wee Caca. Because they're immature and it's Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
But it's Winnie Caca.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, it's that like
vaguely Native American.
Yeah. To get there, they use like the phone navigator, and it's like the voice on the phone is just like a Peter Lorre kind of impression. Right. It actually sounds a little bit more like Ren from Ren and Stimpy than Peter Lorre. Like it says something about like "turn left, you imbecile" or something like that.
Right. Maybe it was a special. We didn't see the special guest star in the voice of Ren.
But yeah, so once they get there, Dracula's pretty upset because the camp's like tame now. Like it's the
boomer
thing
humor.
It's like kids these days, like they get participation trophies and blah. It's that kind of thing. Like,
well, in this case, it's participation mice.
Right. Yeah, because instead of hunting mice, they do like t-ball with mice, and the kid just goes up to the tee, picks up the mouse, and walks off with it.
Right. Well, we're going to take Dennis to the top of this really rickety tower that I used to jump off and transform into a bat as a kid. Oh, we don't do that, the director says. We do this smaller one. It's like a playhouse where it's over a bouncy mat. Mm-hmm. And they're in a harness. And it's like, I feel like they're turning into bats, so it's working. Why do you have to go those extra steps?
Right. Yeah, it's just, it's really leaning into this thing that, like, Dracula wants Dennis to be an old school monster, and the world has kind of moved on from that, and Dracula hasn't yet.
Yeah. Which this is more of an indictment of boomers, in my opinion, than it is. I don't think it's intentional. I think he's like, no, kids out there are soft. Those millennials, and at this point, millennials were actually having kids.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it definitely, like, I think it's mocking this sort of, like, mindset.
I hope so.
Yeah. And so then we go back to California, where Johnny's parents have set up Johnny's old bedroom for him and Mavis, which means they, like, put Halloween decorations all over one side of the room.
Mavis' side.
Yeah.
Which, that's very, very parent of them to have the two separate beds. It's like, come on, guys. They've already created one kid.
Yeah.
I think they understand.
Right, yeah. It's...
Did you notice? Johnny has had a fetish his whole life.
I didn't. Are there, like, vampire things?
There's a picture where Johnny's dressed up as a vampire and his dad is holding, is like some mad doctor, holding a stake up to his heart. I'm going to send you this picture right damn now.
Okay.
Because I need you to have this. Because once I saw that, I was so happy.
That's pretty good, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the separate beds thing is one thing, but also, like, the Halloween decorations thing, like, this is, like, kind of what we were talking about, where it's, like, it's a well-intentioned thing, but it's also, like...
kind of fucked up.
Yeah, where she's like, this is all that I... You know, it'd be, like, you know, an interracial couple, and it's, like, you know, like, we made burritos because you have a Latino boyfriend, and it's, like... We're all regular people. We could.
Mom, he's Dominican. He doesn't eat burrito.
Yeah. It's but you know, it's like you said, she's on the path. Like she's not making the right calls, but she's trying to make the right calls, which is the first step.
Yeah, and of course, like Mike actually, I think he understands because he's like, no, Linda, don't do that.
Right. Yeah, and you know, it's Nick Offerman with just his deadpan, so it's it's pretty good.
Which I like the turning of that, because usually it's the dad that does the fucked up stuff and the mom's like, oh god.
Yeah, it's a nice change from the stereotype of like sitcoms and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And to like make matters worse, she's like, I invited some other mixed couples to so they can tell you how nice it is living here.
Mm-hmm.
And the mixed couples are like it's like a monster lady and her husband.
Well, the husband is the monster. It's Karen and Pandragora.
Oh, right.
And Pandragora is like an octopus guy.
Yeah.
He's the father from Octodaddy. Have you ever played that?
And then the other couple, it's supposed to be this woman and the werewolf that she's married to, but it's just like a hipster guy.
Paul the werewolf, yeah.
I'm not a werewolf. I just have a beard. Like,
right. And like it makes sense. He's very insulted. He's just like, I'm out. Peace.
Yeah. Yeah, so they leave, and so it's just the two couple, or the parents, and then the two younger couples. And then back at the summer camp, Dracula has taken Dennis up to the top of that old flying tower, which has been condemned. It's like fenced off. The camp's not using it anymore, as they shouldn't be, because it's like swaying in the breeze as they're up at the top.
Mm-hmm. Clearly a liability.
Mm-hmm. And Dracula just throws Dennis off the tower.
Right, and everyone's like, we really think you should go after him. He's not transforming yet. And Drac's like, he's going to transform. It's fine. It'll happen.
Yeah, he's like, if he knows I'm there, he needs that, like,
to do it on his own.
Yeah. And then but this fall goes on forever, and like
for too long.
Yeah. And finally he's like, oh no, he's not going to change. So then Dracula swoops down, rescues him at the very last second. But the camp director's like, yeah, that's not cool. You just threw a kid off of a tower.
Right, that's a liability. We're going to have to call the parents. Which, by the way, the fact that they still have the tower standing, that's the liability, guys. Right. That thing needs to go away.
Yeah, he's like, this is child endangerment. Like, we have to call Dennis's mom, and we may need to get the authorities involved.
Right.
Meanwhile, the tower just falls over in the background.
And Frankenstein lands in a fire and goes, fire! And rips through the whole camp, setting it ablaze.
Yeah, so the whole camp gets burned down, and Dracula's like, kind of looking sheepish at the counselor as this is all going on.
Right, he's like, we're going to have to call the cops.
Right. And then back in California, Johnny and Mavis are sitting on the roof. That's kind of their place, They even here in California, they get away and go sit on the roof. We hear the Monster Mash playing downstairs as like his family's dancing.
Yeah, that's pretty gross, right?
Yeah. Again, it's just that like parents leaning into the stereotypes and not realizing, and that's Mavis is like, I feel really weird here. Yeah. And Johnny's like, no, it's my family, they're being weird. You're not weird.
I do like she has a pet name for him, Johnny Stein. That kind of carried over.
Yeah. Yeah, and she's just like, I don't know, maybe we don't belong here.
Well, Johnny's like, yes, we don't belong here.
Right. And she's like, but am I a freak because I just grew up sheltered in the hotel? Mm-hmm. And he's like, no, you're not a freak. Like, you're amazing. You're my favorite person in the world. This is a really sweet moment between, this young couple.
And that's when it gets interrupted by a really cool video that one of Johnny's friends sent him that he hasn't watched. Right. How does he know?
Yep, so he watches the video, and it is a viral video of Dennis falling from the tower and getting caught at the last second.
Right. Yeah, which, of course, Mavis is like, what the fuck you say?
Right. So she calls Dracula, and he's like, no, everything's fine. We're okay. That's probably some other...
There's an alarm going off in the back.
Yeah, and, Mavis is like, I know what's up. I'm coming home. I'll see you soon.
Right, and Dracula's like, oh, shit.
Yeah. So now we kind of got like a race back to the hotel.
Right. Well, of course, some more of the tower or some of the other building falls on, or tree, a burning tree, falls on their car. So they can't go anywhere now. Luckily, right. Griffin has made a call to help them out. Did we say that Blobby got thrown off?
Oh, yeah, he gets knocked off a cliff at some point.
Yeah, he flies off into a river, and they're like, he's fine, he's Blobby. Makes sense.
Yeah, Blobby is like just kind of in the background of a lot of scenes. He doesn't talk, so he's just like there. Well,
apparently he does talk, but like it's more like blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Yeah, so they all so Blobby shows back up and on his little rascal, and they're all the monsters are trying to pile on this little thing. So you've got 5 or 6 people on one of the little grocery store carts, and these are Frankenstein, like big people. Yeah. And so they start the rascal up, and it's just like not even at a walking pace. Like, you would just be better to just try to walk back to the hotel
or fly.
Yeah, which takes us back to California, where they go to the airport, and it's going to be like all these layovers, and you're going to have to fly to all these like connecting flights. So Mavis is just like, fuck it. She just turns into a bat, grabs Johnny. Johnny's holding their luggage, and she just like flies them across the ocean as a bat.
Yeah, but she pulls up a poncho and Johnny's like, no, don't do it. She's like, we're doing this.
Yeah.
Kind of signaling we're going to go through the sun a little bit.
Right. So eventually the rascal runs out of power. Frankenstein has an idea. He inflates Blobby like a balloon.
This is a fetish. This is a fetish for somebody.
And so then it's like he lets go, and it's just like, when you blow up a balloon and let go of it, and it flies around everywhere. They're all just kind of like hanging on to Blobby as he flaps everywhere.
And of course, Murray the mummy falls off and gets a little unwound, but they hold on to him by a string, I guess.
Yeah. And Murray's kind of like, he's a more like round mummy, and so as he like gets unwrapped, now he's like a thin mummy.
Right. And the joke is he's put on a couple bandages, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. So they end up getting to the castle, and they think they got there first, but no, Mavis comes walking out and sees them as they're like, walking up like the drawbridge.
Right, and I do appreciate that Drax trying to play it off like, we just went out for some ice cream or something. And Mavis like, oh yeah, that's really weird because I saw you doing this.
Yeah.
And there's a viral video like that's been clearly edited in the time.
Yeah, it's one of like the auto-tune news kind of things. It's got like little clips of Dracula, like singing and everything.
Calling Mavis crazy.
Cuckoo bananas, I think is that what it is? Something like that.
Yeah.
She's like, we're leaving. Dennis isn't safe here.
We're moving to California.
Yeah, you let humans into your hotel, but you wouldn't let them into your heart.
Which that stings, right?
Yeah, and Dracula has done a relatively good job of accepting Johnny into his life, but son-in-law versus grandson is a different thing, and
also that's his grandson. Johnny is like, he is Mavis's husband.
yeah, exactly.
So,
but
my grandchildren must all be vampires.
Yeah. And, Dracula can tell here, like, he's fucked up. Like, he realizes his mistake, but it's a little too late. We just cut to, like, a little later. Mavis is packing, and she hears Dennis in the next room and walks in there, and he's trying desperately to turn into a bat.
Which, that's fucked up. Like, that got me. It's like, oh, shit, that's trauma. I know that.
Yeah, that's really sad, because he's like, but if I can turn into a bat, then Grandpa will let us stay. Like, we can stay here.
Yeah.
And you can tell Mavis is, like, pretty heartbroken about that, too, because, this whole thing has been about protecting him, and, like, now, like, he has taken on this argument that he should not have
internalized that trauma.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And then it's kind of strange. So then they're going to go ahead and have Dennis's 5th birthday before they move. And Johnny's family all come to Transylvania for the party. I feel like in real life it would just be like, we'll just have another party for the humans once we move. We're not going to make them fly all the way to Transylvania for a party and then fly back.
But if you remember listening to the lady at the desk of the airport, she made it sound like Transylvania was in the U.S. because you flew to Transylvania, then you flew back to Chicago, and then to Budapest. It's like, why? Why would you do that?
Right.
That's the worst thing ever.
Yeah. Mavis is like, I invited Vlad. I wanted him to get to see his great-grandson once before we moved away.
You did a what? You invited Vlad?
And then we cut to finally seeing Vlad, who, as we've said, is Mel Brooks, and he has
are we skipping over the whole thing where the family comes in and we actually are introduced to the Phantom singing as they enter in?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Little dinner scene.
Yeah, the Phantom's playing on, like, the big organ and everything, and like you said, he's just a guy with a mask over part of his face.
He's just a guy.
Yeah. So Vlad has, like, a bat monster friend named Bella.
Right. It's almost like, are they bat monsters or vampire bats?
Yeah, it's, like, if you look at, like, Van Helsing, when, like, Dracula turns into that, like, giant bat monster, it's that, except he just stays that way. Like, he's not...
Or if you're a Batman fan, he is Man-Bat. Quite literally.
Exactly. Yeah. And so Vlad and Bella are going to come to the party. Mm-hmm. Then Dracula's like, okay, so the party's going to be a masquerade. And, he tells Johnny, like, you got to get all of your family dressed up like monsters because Vlad will kill everybody.
Right. He will kill them and steal their souls. Specifically.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, this guy has done some bad shit. He is the bad guy.
Yeah. And so then the party has started, and we get Johnny dressed in, like, the Bram Stoker's Dracula kind of costume.
The Gary Oldman.
Mm-hmm.
Which I do appreciate that Dracula's like, what are you wearing? It looks like a baboon's butt on your head. And it's like, yes, that has always been a goofy thing, but...
Yeah, Dracula's like super, he's like, that's what you think we are like? Like, what is...
and if you do the blah blah thing around Vlad, he will just kill you.
Yeah. And then Vlad does arrive, and...
can we talk about how Linda dressed up the rest of the family as zombies? Like, really awful zombies?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that's zombie face. That's gross. I don't like that.
Yeah, and they're all just kind of like... doing like bad,
like, shuffling.
Yeah. Dracula's like, Frank, you gotta help me. We gotta distract Vlad. We don't want him to get anywhere near any of the humans. Mm-hmm. Keep him away from Dennis. Like, just keep him away from all of them. Right.
And speaking of Dennis, Winnie tackles Dennis as she's wont to do, starts just licking him, which that's a little weird for kids to be doing, but okay. And then Dennis's cousins, I don't know which brother they're from. I guess it really doesn't matter. Starts mocking Dennis, and then, of course, Winnie just, like, snarls at them and chases them all away, signifying, like, cute little thing between them.
Yeah. But then, like, you know, they try to distract, but it doesn't work. Vlad is, like, single-minded, like, I want to see my grandson. And so he ends up picking him up, and it's basically like Dracula keeps trying to, like, hold him away and everything. Well, like, but let me see those fangs.
Well, also, let's mention that when Bella and Vlad initially arrive on the outside of the bridge, Bella's like, I smell humans. And, of course, Vlad's like, yeah, we're in the outside world. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
But of course, Bella's like, no, we got to destroy the castle. Like, so, okay, we know Bella's going to be the bad guy if he's not just a bad guy.
Right. Yeah. But so, yeah, Dracula's trying to, like, not let Vlad see that Dennis doesn't have fangs. But so
introduces Jonathan as Jonafang.
Yeah.
And, of course, Jonathan does the blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
and Vlad's like, don't like that.
When Vlad finally, like, picks up Dennis and looks at him, everybody's, like, afraid. What's he going to say? And he's like, oh, he's a late fanger, just like you were, Drac.
Yeah. When you were a little baby, you were always peeing your pants. Which is great.
And he's like, oh, all we need to do, we just need to scare the fangs out. And the best way to do that is by destroying something innocent that he loves.
Right. Hey, Keiki just arrived, or at least the guy playing Keiki. Oh, that was Chris Kattan. So. Yeah, so it's like they, you know, hired a party clown, basically, but it's like, you know, the guys that dress up like Elmo on the street. Yeah, and they distract Vlad. Or no, they don't distract Vlad. He arrived before Vlad actually got in here, didn't he?
But yeah, he's like getting ready to perform, and so he comes out on stage, and Vlad possesses him and starts making him like
more monstrous.
Do like terrible stuff. And Dennis is very upset about that.
What is it that he says? When Keiki's here, you don't eat cake. Cake eats you, or something like that.
Yeah, and Dracula's like, stop, like let's not go forward with this. And Mavis is like, what's going on? We were trying this thing, but but it's not right. We shouldn't do this. And it just like breaks into this huge fight. Like everybody's arguing.
Yeah. Dracula pretty much reveals that this was going to be his last attempt to make Dennis's fangs pop out.
And Johnny's family again is like, but we just want Dennis to be normal.
Be normal.
Yeah.
Awful.
So while everybody's fighting, Dennis just like walks out. Like he's just sad. Everybody's fighting about him. Like he feels like it's his fault.
Yeah, but he's got one companion. He's got Winnie.
Yeah.
They're going to run off together.
Yeah, so they're heading out into the woods. Somewhere in the course of the fight, the humans reveal themselves to be humans. And Vlad, obviously
Vlad's angry, but Bella's pissed.
Yeah. So Vlad says something about, like, I can't believe you let my granddaughter, marry this human. And then that's when Dracula's like, he starts to stand up for Mavis, which kind of in turn is him standing up for Johnny. Yeah, and he's like, she's happy. That's all that matters. It's none of your business what she does. There's nothing wrong with humans. It kind of takes Vlad's bigotry to reveal to Dracula that he's kind of been a bigot as well.
Right. Which, okay, fair enough. Good play.
Yeah.
But unlike real life, this, we don't see it yet, but this is effectively what won Vlad over, which is kind of weird.
Yeah. And Mavis also is kind of like, she's kind of touched that Dracula stood up for her and Dennis and Johnny. Yeah. But then they all notice that Dennis is gone.
Right. And of course, then we see that Bella is chasing after them. And I do like the little gag where Winnie brings Dennis like a little dead bird on a plate. It's like, I hope you enjoy this home-cooked meal, because once I run a Fortune 500 company, you won't get it anymore.
Right.
It's like, oh, that's adorable. She's got a girl boss.
Yeah, that was cute. He's like, I really wish I could stay. I'm sorry that I'm not a monster. And when he's like, you're the nicest boy I know. Like, I don't care if you're a monster or not.
So, proving once again, she probably has zinged for him.
Yeah.
But that's when Bella arrives, crashing the party.
Yep, and so he snatches them up and flies off, and Winnie just immediately bites him. As soon as Winnie bites him, he like slaps her, knocks her down, and that causes Dennis to finally grow his fangs and turn into a vampire.
Okay, I get it. But to a point, would it have been better for for Dennis just to have fought him off, like punch him right in the nose or something, and just been okay with being normal.
Yeah, I feel like that is definitely where
Or quote,
we spent this
normal,
whole
sorry.
not monstrous.
Yeah.
Because we spent this whole movie being like, is it okay?
Let Dennis be Dennis.
Yeah, exactly. And it feels like a cop out for like Dracula to finally be like, okay, I accept Dennis for who he is as a human, and then he doesn't really have to accept him that hard because he immediately turns into a vampire.
Right. Or even better yet, maybe one fang pops. And then you get an adorable, cute mascot for the series.
Yeah, that he's like, he is literally half human, half vampire. But yeah, instead, he fully turns vampire and just starts beating up Bella. Dracula and Mavis arrive at that time and see this going on, and they're like really proud that Dennis is turned into a vampire and protecting Winnie and fighting off Bella and everything.
And at this point, we get Bella calls in for his fellow vampire bats or bat creatures to come in, and we get a full-on monster fight.
And this fight is fun. Like, it goes on a while, and like it's the monsters and the humans team up, and they're all just fighting off all these bat monsters. Because they're just trying to destroy the hotel.
Right, and Bella tries to throw a rock at Dennis. Dennis punches through like a superhero in the superhero Superman pose, and like knocks him out, knocks him to the tennis court, where pretty good gag where Bella gets hit in the face multiple times with tennis balls, and then they hit him one time in the nards, showing that even man bats have nards.
Right. Eventually, they beat up all the bat monsters. All the humans are saved.
Yeah, the gremlin woman eats a bat monster. I didn't do that.
Yeah, of course. And so everything's kind of calmed down, and Dennis is like goes up to Dracula and is like, now that I'm a monster, am I cool now? And that like just breaks Dracula. He's like, you were always cool. Like you're my grandson. Of course, I've always loved you. And he's like, well, can we stay now?
Yeah. You were never going to leave. No.
Yeah, Mavis is like, all right, yeah, we can stay.
Right. And of course, Linda's like, well, we'll still be visiting every holiday.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine, I guess.
And then Bella comes back. He, all the other bat monsters were defeated, but he swoops in to attack Johnny, and Vlad stops him.
Dun, dun, dun. Stops him and shrinks him, I believe.
Yeah, like turns him back into like a regular bat, basically.
He's like, you'll never hurt my family. Which it's like, Vlad, you brought him in here. Do you really have much of a leg to stand on?
Yeah, it just felt like they, the whole family had to like reconcile by the end of it. Bella, like you said, like Bella could be a bad guy because he's just this, monster bat or whatever, but like they couldn't leave Vlad on the outside.
Right. Which, okay, here's kind of my play on this. Why couldn't Bella have just been a cousin? And, like, it's just a family spat where you just have a shitty cousin? Because we all have shitty cousins, right?
Yeah.
But then again, I guess they did kill the rest of the Dracula family, so if that were the case.
True, yeah. So now that Vlad is happy he's accepted everybody as well, it's time to party, and like the last movie, we end with a big dance number.
Right, where one with Blobby macking on Murray's girlfriend. I think Blobby steals her from him. Yeah. Griffin actually meets an invisible woman. Mm-hmm. And they fall in love. And then the gremlin lady eats a whole cake and says, I didn't do that.
Yep. And then we get the end, and we have, again, like the Genndy Tartakovsky, like, classic animation style stuff going on during the credits.
Yeah. So it's not a bad sequel. It's not great. The message is a bit of a mess.
Yeah, it's like their heart was in the right place, but I feel like they could have fine-tuned this a little bit, and the message would have been a little less muddy.
Right. I feel like even going to Keegan-Michael Key and be like, do you see anything with this? Or maybe even like actually hiring a Latino like actor as well and be like, do you see anything wrong with this?
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely just needed a little bit of like consulting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not.
That's why you let other people into the room with you.
Exactly. Yeah, it like having Linda, Johnny's mom. Like, I feel like she's sort of an accurate portrayal of the movie in that like she's trying, she's not getting it right a lot of the time. but her heart's in the right place, and that counts for something, but you still want it to be better.
Yeah. But she's trying, which is important. Very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I feel like that's the movie. It's trying. It's not hitting every time, but it's got a positive message that it may fumble a little bit here and there, but generally, it's got good intentions.
Yeah, in my opinion, Vlad got off too easy as well. So.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. But it's alright.
Yeah, it's this being written for kids, like I feel like they're not going to be digging into this as hard.
No.
And so
We're
it's just like
digging a little bit too hard. Yeah.
I think the surface level, like positive message, everybody, should be free to be who they want to be and all that. Like, I think kids are going to get that at some level, and they're not going to notice the inconsistencies.
Right.
So that's good. It's got a good message that kids are going to hopefully pick up on. What more could you really ask for something like this?
Fair enough. Well, I mean, we've been through this. We've been through the first sequence of the Human Centipede, which, in my opinion, should have been called First Segment, but I'm not the guy who wrote or directed it. But I guess we need a palate cleanser for this. And let's go to a more well, I wouldn't even call it more interesting, a definitely grungier version of the first movie.
Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna find out what the second part of the. Is it second sequence? Is that what it's called? Human Centipede second sequence.
Yeah, exactly. I really, it would have been, in my opinion, I would have liked to call it second segment, but yeah, second sequence.
Yeah. So join us next week for the second sequence.
Or I'm sorry, it's not the second sequence. It's called the full sequence, which is weird because there's more. So, okay.
Yeah, so it's first sequence, full sequence, and final sequence? Is that Okay.
Which, I mean, the full sequence sounds like it should be the final sequence as well.
Yeah.
But who am I? I'm not the person who made this.
Right. Well, I guess we'll find out more about why it's the full sequence next week, maybe? I don't know.
Maybe. But, all right, Anthony, where can they find us?
So you can find us on all the socials at The Frankencast. We're also on YouTube. You can email us at thefrankencast@gmail.com. And you can find us over at patreon.com/thefrankencast.
Yeah. We appreciate you, and we're glad to see you. Anything else we got to say?
I think that's all.
All right, in that case, to be continued.
Looks like you survived another episode. The Frankencast is a production of FCR Media. It's hosted by Anthony Bowman and Eric Velasquez. Follow us on Twitter at The Frankencast, or send us a letter at thefrankencast@gmail.com. Our cover art is by Amanda Keller. You can find her at Keller Illustrations on Instagram. Our theme music is by Vivek Abhishek. Thanks for listening.